I do not have an abundance of notes. We're just gonna
It'll
do
be
our
fine.
best.
They didn't have an abundance of a script, so it'll be okay.
All right, here we go. Just imagine there is music, music, music. Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we continue our summer 2021 Satanic Panic series with the 1976 film To the Devil a Daughter, sometimes called Child of Satan. This is Castle of Horror episode 343. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castlebridge Media. Tony Salvaggio is out this week. With me from Austin is Mr. Drew Edwards, writer-creator of the long-running underground comic Halloween Man, currently published by Comixology. He is a Best Writer Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the PEN America Fellowship. Say hello, Drew.
Howdy, all you beautiful people out there in internet land.
That is such a delightful, that's a wonderful greeting. I'm glad just hello, Drew. Okay. In Los Angeles, Adam Fosho has worked on some of the most successful interactive franchises of all time, whether it's Call of Duty, Destiny, which we worked on together, Skylanders, Shrek, Transformers, or James Bond. Adam's work with these stories, characters, and worlds has helped to set them apart and continue to delight millions. Say hello, Adam.
How are you tonight? Good to see you all again.
Welcome back.
It's great to have you back.
Thank you.
All the way from, I remember there was one time when you were on a Ghostbusters episode and you were doing your critique while like walking around Times Square. It was the coolest thing.
I think that
you
was
were like,
yeah. Let's do like several of these while traveling to different destinations.
Yes,
to actually
that was
do
wild.
The show.
On location, yep.
Yeah, you were the man on the street, yeah, there at Rockefeller Center. That was pretty groovy. And finally, also in Denver, as always, color commentary from Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello. All right. I had never actually seen this movie before.
Oh my God.
But we're doing Satanic Panic. And people were saying, boy, you got to see one of the last identifiable Hammer horror films. And that is what this was. To the Devil a Daughter is a 1976 British / West German horror film directed by Peter Sykes, produced by Hammer. It is a Hammer movie. And Terra Filmkunst, and starred Richard Widmark in the lead, Christopher Lee as the main baddie, looking good, Honor Blackman looking fantastic, Nastassja Kinski looking illegal, and Denim Elliott. It is based on the 1953 novel of the same name by Dennis Wheatley. Now, Dennis Wheatley also wrote The Devil Rides Out, which had been made into a movie in '68 that also starred Christopher Lee in the hero role in that time. So this is only 8 years later. And it's important as we go through to think of this and that movie and how different they are, considering that '68 is already late Hammer. But boy, for Gothic horror films, these things could not look more different. And it's the same, more or less the same source material and some of the same production people. This is the last Hammer movie to star Christopher Lee until a movie in 2011 called The Resident. And like I say, sometimes it was called Child of Satan. So let's get our opening thoughts. Let's go Drew, Joya, and then Adam, you'll have the last word, and then we'll go into topics. So Drew, opening thoughts to The Devil a Daughter.
So I didn't hate this. It was entertaining.
Always an auspicious beginning. So.
Yeah, it was entertaining enough, although it takes kind of forever to get going, which I think is never particularly my favorite thing about a movie. However, of all the movies that we've done this round of Satanic Panic, when you were to say Satanic Panic horror film, this is kind of what I would think of. It's very much like a post Rosemary's Baby, post Exorcist, post Omen kind of vibe to it. In fact, this reminds me the most of the Omen but like scaled down, like with like
Mm.
a fraction of the grandeur that The Omen has.
Yeah.
It's not a great movie, as many has said. There's a lot of problems, and I definitely think there's some problematic stuff, particularly with the way it sexualizes a teenage girl, which I'm sure we will get more into. But there's a lot of stuff that I did like. Christopher Lee is the bad guy, is terrific in this. He's got some great lines in his booming Christopher Lee voice. I really like Honor Blackman in this. I don't know why, but she just was like entertaining to me every time she was on the screen. Spoiler: she's killed. I was very upset when she was killed. So I didn't hate it, but I can also kind of acknowledge that it's also not very good, which I guess puts me in the weird position of I will probably defend this movie a few times while still also thinking it's not a particularly good movie. Also, the least hammerish Hammer movie I've ever saw. You could really see they were chasing The Exorcist with this one. Like they were trying to put out something that felt very contemporary. It doesn't feel very much like a Hammer movie, which I think is kind of unfortunate because, as you said, The Devil's Ride Out is arguably one of the best Hammer movies, and it's the same kind of source material, and it's got a really great look and vibe to it. But yeah, that's kind of where I fall on it.
Excellent. Julia, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I had experienced quite a roller coaster of emotions on this film. It starts out slow, so but actually the very first thing out of the what's the word when we started like out the gate,
Out the gate.
is that you see Christopher Lee among this sea of other people in this church, and you just immediately are just like, wow, he's just such a presence. Like any room he's in, he just stands out so much. Just his face. So that was one thing that struck me immediately. I was like, he's just such an amazing presence, and he gives such an amazing performance. I really thought he gave a great performance. So that's the first thing. But then yes, it does kind of take a while to get going, like Drew said. So there's a little bit of that anxiousness and boredom at first. Then there's some super stereotypical Satanic Panic stuff that happens throughout the movie for sure. And so I agree that this is a really good example of that. So there's a lot of times when it is really creepy. There's a lot of times when it is super confusing. You're like, what? Wait, why did that happen? Who is that? How is that going? And there's some times when you're just really upset, and like Drew mentioned, the sexualization of a 14-year-old, including showing her fully nude, was very upsetting. Like that's just like I'm just like mad, or Honor Blackman getting killed, like you said. So there's definitely things like that where you're just pissed off or shocked or whatever. But I think it definitely has some good moments. I think it has some beautiful shots, really nice sets, and yeah, Christopher Lee's performance I think is fantastic. I just think he's really perfect for this role. So yeah, mixed feelings for sure.
Thank you very, very much. Adam, and once again, welcome. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think Drew and Julia have set it up extremely well. It definitely comes at a time, when Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist and The Omen, I mean, these were all, really very popular and good and good pictures in their own way. And I think if I remember correctly, and this is one of the Wheatley, this was the Wheatley novel, one of the Wheatley novels that got that was adapted and that Hammer had done. And I think he also did The Devil Rides Out.
Yeah.
I think as original source.
Yeah.
So, but let me just start with the fact that I think as the screenwriter, I think had taken a lot of liberties with this adaptation. And I think as I understand, he didn't really think the source material was very good, and he made a lot of significant changes to it. And Wheatley himself really didn't like this movie to the point that I think he wrote a letter to Hammer saying, basically, took some kind of action to try and keep them from ever adapting his work again. So that's an interesting way to begin. The problem that I have with it is Honor Blackman I think is terrific. I always like Christopher Lee. We've all seen him in any number of pictures where we go like, what's he doing here? Or he is the cornerstone piece of this. He is a consummate professional. He always looks he always is Christopher Lee, which is so great. But this is my problem with it is that this is a picture that's neither fish nor fowl, right? It doesn't. It tries to follow this Satanic Panic, this sensational a sensational kind of path that these other movies have followed. But budget notwithstanding, it's so kind of unremarkable that it really feels like it meanders through the material, and it doesn't really deliver. It doesn't make a strong stand, and I think that's probably what I find kind of most objectionable about it. It has all the trappings of clearly an exploitation picture in one way or another of either the source material or Nastassja Kinski or the violence that didn't even appear in the original book, I don't believe, or at least not to that degree. But it doesn't really deliver, and because of it, it really feels kind of as bland as an English winter afternoon. You're just like, oh my God, it's this astonishing sameness, and parts of it are nice, but I think really you should expect more from something like this, and I think that's the part that I probably have the most trouble with. Is the pieces are there. I don't mind us an authentic run at this kind of material where it's like, okay, we're going to go all out and it's going to be crazy and gonzo, and okay, it's that kind of movie. But this feels really uninspired in a lot of ways. And listen, it got made, and I'm happy whenever a picture gets made. But I think, and I don't know if you guys will agree with me, but I really feel like even with Hammer Pictures, I have an expectation of some sort, and I think that this doesn't even really fulfill that expectation. It begins to feel much more like a movie of the week, and then with maybe a European movie of the week that has the sexualized overtones and the extra blood. It doesn't really feel like a real a passionate embrace of this kind of material. And that's just, I'm looking at it through 2021 lens, I suppose. But again, I saw this as a kid and was kind of, I think, unmoved by it. As I know these are opening thoughts, but as an example, take on something done by, I don't know, Mario Bava. And, there is a definite point of view that he is taking, and you go, okay, I'm on board with this. Here we're just watching, waiting for something to happen, and when it does happen, you go, huh? Or you get angry.
Sometimes
as Julia
it's
has said.
really wild what happens, but I mean, well, first of all, thank you. Let's go straight into where we place. I want to dig in a little bit to what is the Satanic Panic and why does this fit so well, because a couple of things really began to make themselves clear to me while I was watching this, because the whole Satanic Panic thing, when it comes to movies, because it's exploiting people's interest in all of this sort of crazy Satan stuff, that really comes around with like The Exorcist, and The Exorcist is pretty pretty interesting, and what's the word I want to look? Drew, we've often joked about The Exorcist is classy, and the Omen, likewise. There's the big mansions and stuff like that. So the pieces that you had to have in a film like this were very different from Gothic. You've got to have both a contemporary setting with like the cars and the machinery and occasionally a lot of like modern medical apparatuses and stuff like that, and at the same time really ridiculously grody rituals. And that's what is most funny to me is funny is probably not the right word, but in this movie I really sensed a kind of sophomoric rubbing of the hands together. What the heck can we come up with? What if the demon they worship is like impaled like up the anus with a giant stake, and what if
the personification of it is a tiny little gory, disgusting Muppet creature,
like a weird.
Would you call him Satanic Elmo?
I called him a Satanic Elmo.
God.
There's this weird little hand puppet, and the whole idea is always supposed to be a kind of crazily, I associate it with like Kiss concerts, right? Just sort of this sort of bonkers demonism that has nothing to do with reality and everything to do with sort of badness. But the problem is that, and by the way, I like this movie a lot better than a lot of other movies that I might watch. But the problem is that you're always going to be flirting all the way over to laughability, with something. At the point when an actual human has to control a hand puppet that is slimily climbing up the naked thigh of a 14-year-old girl, you really begin to wonder
Hopefully
if
the
this
not
movie
14-year-old body double, but yes.
Oh, is it a body double?
No, I assume, because at that
I-
point you're not seeing her
got
face,
me,
you're just
man.
seeing her
I
body.
really have no idea. Yeah, because we're looking down from Nastassja Kinski's perspective, like holy mackerel. And
I hope it's a
and
body
it has
double.
like a little tongue, a little bloody
It's disgusting.
condom tongue that is like licking at her belly. You know,
Ugh.
it is the weirdest, crazy. So everything here is kind of is far out. I mean, in the same sense that in like the 1970s movies that Hammer did back in the day,
But
you know, like
also like
Yeah.
The Exorcist and The Omen,
yeah,
it's very Catholic, or at least has
for
a
sure.
veneer of Catholicism.
Yes.
And I think,
Although he's been
you know,
excommunicated, this priest.
But
yeah, he's
it's
not
all Catholic stuff. It's
the
Catholic
imagery
heresy.
for sure.
You
Yeah,
know?
and I think when you talk about this genre, because like a few weeks back we did Witchboard, and I
Yes.
said that movie didn't
Hmm.
really hit me as a Satanic Panic movie, even though obviously they were trying to exploit the actual Satanic Panic that was going on. And I think this stuff is the reason why it didn't really hit me, is that this movie does have all that stuff. It has this idea that there are Satanists out there and they are a real danger to society. And then you have like the Roman Catholic imagery and everything. So it puts you squarely in that genre. Whereas some of the other movies we discussed, even though they're kind of exploiting people's fears of witchcraft and Satanism, they don't necessarily bring all this stuff to the table.
Yeah.
That sort of like Roman Catholic pageantry that this movie
Yeah.
Thank you for
There
saying
is
that.
there is a lot of that is true. Although Drew, I with that though, going back to something you said about this whole notion about the Satanists among us and kind of everything else. I mean, is it then the mood and the intensity that other pictures, as we said, classier pictures maybe demonstrated, like Rosemary's Baby, like not The Exorcist really, but other ones, and there were a slew of other pictures too, where you had people who, The Omen was a good example, where people were controlling events and things on the real world, in this sense of we're not in control of the world itself, and that you could be a bystander and people could be chanting in the other room, and
Yes.
you could be beheaded by a sheet of glass, which is indicative, I think, of maybe feelings of the people had in the 70s. For sure, in a lot of ways, but there is that sort of sense of not just helplessness, but a sense of otherness, where there are others that are there, and that we have no control, and we can fall victim to this sense of underlying evil and manipulation from this group of people, whether you want to call it devil worshippers or you want to call it whatever. But what's interesting is there is some of that in this, and as I watched it, it was very effective in some other pictures, but in the things that I saw here, it seemed far less effective, and I can't tell whether it's because it became almost comical. And by the way, I'm a big fan of pre-Indiana Jones Denim Elliott.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't I can't say no to that. But there are moments in here where I'm like, oh, that would have been a good bit if and it seems like it just misses that. I can't pretend that it's just that it's money. I think it's just somehow it's enough there to sort of say we have that moment or we have that piece, but it isn't fully embraced. It doesn't really create this sense of dread or this sense of anxiety or that other more effective pictures. I don't know whether you guys really felt this way as well, but this seemed like a critical thing that was missing of a picture of this time.
To me, the main problem, really, and I guess to be really fair, we should probably go back, but the main failure, Adam, I mean, all of these really gonzo things we've been talking about would work, except for that the movie otherwise drags Honor Blackman is here, and the color of it all just reminds me so much of the Avengers, right? And it feels like, in many cases, like an Avengers movie, where they're investigating some weird stuff going on. Richard Widmark, like John Steed, has suddenly been tasked with protecting somebody, and then, but suddenly you'll get these moments from a completely different movie, from a grody exploitation thing, where this weird crazy birth thing, because again, the satanic bits since none of this has anything to do with reality, right? The satanic bits are just a bunch of Hollywood or London writers sitting around smoking their pipes going, what would be crazy? What would be crazy? How about like a weird demon birth where we tie the girl's legs together and it comes out the stomach? You know?
That part for me did work. Like the part where they're, she's having to give birth and they're binding her and it's got this sort of quasi S&M vibe to it.
It's deeply disturbing. I suppose that's functional.
And Christopher Lee is like telling, like, no, we can't give her any, painkillers and anything like that stuff, especially because he is dressed like a priest and in fact still considers himself a priest. Like even though he has been excommunicated, he still thinks of himself as a priest.
Yeah, so let's talk about let's go to Christopher Lee's character. By the way, Christopher Lee dressed like a priest still looks like Dracula. I'm just saying. That's although Julia pointed out that basically Christopher Lee just looks like Dracula, really, when it comes down to it. But he does. There's something about, and this is the exoticism of Catholics, is that their raiments they're just so striking that they work well for creating bad guys. So anyway, Drew, do you want to explain to us what nature of heretical priest is Christopher Lee?
Well, for one, he does not think it's heresy. He says, it is not heresy, and I will not recant.
Okay, I want to stop you right there. Did anybody else suddenly channel Rob Zombie when they heard that? Is it just me?
I'm always channeling Rob Zombie 100% of the time.
When are we not doing that?
I'm digging through the ditches and I'm burning through their witches, and then I'm slamming into the back of my Dragula.
Yes. I think it was the same. I can't remember if it was from Hellbilly Deluxe or if it was from one of the White Zombie albums.
It's Supercharger Heaven.
Supercharger Heaven. Yes. I heard this at the beginning, and you hear the voice of that priest, and then you hear, it is not heresy, and I will not recant. And that bit is used in Supercharger Heaven, and I just that actually made me really happy to hear that. So anyway, continue. It is not heresy, and he will not recant. Go ahead.
Well, he's set up he considers the devil to be God, right, and God to be the devil, and he has basically set up an alternative church with nuns and everything. And I am completely fascinated by this idea that there's this splinter church and they still observe all the rituals of Catholicism to a degree, because they don't tell you that outright. And one of the things I kind of dig about this movie is, they show Christopher Lee saying that, but then they jump ahead several years and they don't really explain to you what's going on. And I know that's technically a flaw of the movie. Mm-hmm. But I kind of like the fact that they let you slowly figure out what his deal is and what he believes and everything. Like there's never like an opening scrawl like Star Wars or Monster Squad or something like that where they tell you the mythology of the movie. They just make you, they just drop you into this world and go, okay, good luck.
Right. It doesn't start out by saying, because even though you watch his excommunication in the opening scene, if you're not paying attention, it's not even all that clear exactly what is happening. Like his excommunication first of all, everybody in the excommunication seems to be getting along pretty well, considering that they are kicking him out of the church. We only hear his thoughts where he says, it is not heresy and I will not recant. But
I think that's kind of what makes him magnetic in this. Is that, Clive Barker talks about Christopher Lee as Dracula, and I think that's also true here, as a sort of intelligent malevolence, where he's thinking he's thinking things through. He's got a plan that he's setting into action, and that's scarier than a mindless benevolence like the shark from Jaws or something.
Right.
I think that this takes it a step further, because even though this guy is doing absolutely diabolical things, he does not think he is the bad guy. Like he thinks he is going to create an age of enlightenment by bringing effectively the Antichrist to life, and it's pretty interesting stuff, even if
But
the
what's
movie doesn't
funny
say
about that?
anything
Yeah,
about
I mean his plan is, because we're talking about Christopher Lee as the bad guy. His plan is that he has summoned two entities, basically. One through a natural birth, which is a bloody natural birth that resulted in the death of her mom, which is Nastassja Kinski, and the other, the bloody current recent birth of a demon baby, and he's going to fuse and sacrifice the two of sorts and bring Astaroth into, I guess, the body of Nastassja Kinski, probably in some transformed fashion.
Well, that
And
was much more clear than it was in the movie. I was like,
well, thank
oh,
you.
okay.
Thank you. And and the reason why is what Drew said, which is that Astaroth will help people be the best versions of themselves. But what's crazy about that, though, is that
I'm rolling my eyes big time on that one.
the trappings of it, though, again, are so nutso, because this is the kind of movie it is, and so there's a hell of a lot of like chanting and blood, and then towards the last half hour, just there's medallions, like secret hideaways, and all kinds of stuff that's and comb murders, and so it gets weird. But so, and to me, that, by the way, is what is most complicated about movies like this, because the main character has these highfalutin ideas, but we're dealing in the realm of the tactile, and so the way it looks has to be nuts. By the way, Christopher Lee as Dracula. We have, I just wanted to point out, what have we done with him? We did Horror of Dracula. We did Count Dracula. We have not done Dracula, Prince of Darkness. We have not done Scars of Dracula. We haven't done most of them. We've only done Horror of Dracula and Count Dracula. That is the weird, for some reason, we've been doing this show. This is our 343rd episode. And yet somehow we have not done a Christopher Lee Dracula series. I can't understand that.
Well, that sounds like it's got to be next. I mean, I don't know what else you're gonna do.
That's how did that happen? How in the world? Anyway, okay. So against so in The Devil Rides Out, remember, it was the Duc de Richelieu as the good guy, and the bad guy was Charles Gray. And here, the Christopher Lee is who played the Duke in that one, is the bad guy. He's in the Charles Gray role, and the good guy role is played by Richard Widmark. Now, I know nothing about Richard Widmark. Adam, do you know Richard Widmark? Is this I know that he was a star. I don't know anything about this actor.
I know he was a very popular. I mean, IMDb says a lot about Richard Widmark, but I mean, he was a very popular actor in the 70s in particular. I mean, he had a very particular type.
Yes.
It's interesting that, I mean, he's very American.
Yeah.
It's very interesting that he is playing kind of an American in London, and he's sort of,
He's
wearing the hat.
visiting star author, basically.
Right. He is an author in this particular film. He is an author of this kind of material, of sort of Satanic Ritual and whatever else.
Yeah.
Supposed to be an expert, and he is contacted by Denim Elliott, while he's at a book signing at a local art gallery.
Right.
Apparently, he's sort of like, I guess the sort of satanic, fill in the name of X very popular author that everyone seems to know, like Stephen King, like the Satanic
Right.
Stephen King, where he just sort of like, this is what I do, and he wears a Rex Harrison hat.
Yeah.
A fair portion of his
That's
film.
right. Yeah.
He sort of feels like he should be considered almost a stand-in for Dennis Wheatley.
That makes sense. Sure.
Yeah, and that does make a fair amount of sense. He's, we're so used to seeing him in these, very, very decisive, almost actiony roles. They're not quite like Burt Reynolds' actions from that time, or actions we know today. But he's a pretty decisive character.
Mm-hmm.
He's a kind of a weighty character. Here he's sort of playing, author detective.
Right. It is,
and it's interesting. He's sort of like the American like Ellery Queen, kind of.
Yeah.
Walking around, kind of doing stuff, and
it's a mystery in that sense. It's like any amateur detective story, like like a Miss Marple, but also like Prince of Darkness, where the novelist guy in Prince of Darkness is it Prince of Darkness I'm thinking of, or
Is
In the
it
Mouth
the
of Mad, In the Mountains of Madness.
oh
Is that
Mouth
what
of
it's called?
Madness? Yeah,
Yeah.
in the Mouth of Madness. Yeah.
Right. Yes, and I also should mention that we watched recently, and we talked about House of Long Shadows, which we did the show with our wonderful, wonderful friends at the Monster Movie Happy Hour. That movie is from 1983, which is, whatever, 7 years after this, I guess, and it's almost exactly the same. I mean, it looks the same, it feels the same in these beginning scenes because it's the American author. It's got a book. It's doing signings. And
Wait a minute,
and
isn't that also what you look at another Stephen King story? Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that what Salem's Lot is basically as well, or some version of it where he's an author?
Ben goes home, but Ben's not. So yes,
He
totally.
doesn't write about vampires, but yeah.
Well, the difference is here you have the writer being treated like he's a star. I mean, he's kind of a celebrity. He's in the people drinking champagne and he's signing books. That's true of Desi Arnaz Jr. and it's true here of Richard Widmark. Ben in Salem's Lot is just going to his hometown and renting a place because he's got to finish a book. So it's not as sexy. And it's possible that Stephen King is so close to
Leave it
material.
to a writer to say that anything like this would be sexy.
Well, I'm saying it wasn't particularly sexy,
I'm saying that none of them is particularly sexy when it's
that's funny.
the writer
No.
going.
I mean, I decided I wanted to be a writer because of the way writers were treated in the movies. Honestly, oh God, in The Third Man, the guy Joseph Cotton is a writer, and he lands and he's like, oh, I'm supposed to go stay with my buddy Orson Welles, and they're like, oh, it's a shame, Orson's dead, and he's like, gosh, what am I going to do? And they're like, you're a writer, right? And he's like, yes, and goes, let's put you up in our cottage and you can teach a course here at the university. I was like, man, I want that career where you just like people just roll out the red carpet for you. And I love the way
the truth has been revealed.
Actually, you know what?
Yeah.
To be truthful, Jason actually does get a lot of free stuff for being a writer. So I think in part it has worked out.
No, some of it's worked out. Yeah. But this has never happened to me. What
You've never been asked
to
to take care of a teenage nun that's on the run from a satanic cult?
No, but
and then run to the airport to actually go pick her up in your right-hand drive car.
That's what's nuts. First of all, God, what a great plot. I don't know if that's actually in the book, but you could steal that today. That's a great plot. Like, hey, I need your help. You're a writer.
Can you kidnap my daughter from the?
Can you kidnap my daughter?
Yes. I was like, wait, what? He actually is going to go grab the nun?
Well,
and he's got
Hey man, there
it's
might be a
enough.
good book in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
It's enough that there might be a good book on it. Exactly what I was going to say. Yep.
Because that's actually
I like
what
to
happens.
follow a good story as much as the next person, but for source
it's
material.
so silly.
But, wow.
Admit
It's
it, Adam.
pure
You would
silliness.
totally
I mean-
kidnap a 14-year-old if it meant you could get some good book ideas.
Yeah.
That's awful.
By the way, this party they're hanging out at is so swell. It's in this art gallery. It's all of these kind of swell people, and his agent is hanging out at the gallery with him. It's Honor Blackman. She's wearing this great scarf, and she's really cool. I mean, Honor Blackman is so. I mean, I really only know her from Goldfinger, and I know that she exists in the Avengers, but we never got the Avengers episodes with Honor Blackman. So to me, she's pussy galore, and that's it.
Not the Marvel Avengers, but the other Avengers.
Correct. The
The
Avengers,
real Avengers.
the Avengers, right? The Avengers I grew up watching on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I don't want to confuse anybody. People be like, "Wait a minute, was there a
Well,
Marvel
you've seen
Avengers
Jason and
series?"
the Argonauts. She's Hera in that.
oh, is she? I completely forgot that. You're exactly
Back in
right.
the
I'm
Harryhausen
sorry.
one.
Yeah, Doctor Horrible's House of Horrible or something. There's a really funny, and I'm butchering the title, but I believe it's Dr. Horrible.
Joss Whedon? The Joss Whedon thing?
No, it was the guy from The Trip. Anyway, it doesn't matter. She was there was a horror anthology series that she showed up in as an immortal character, and she was great in that. And that's like in 2000. But
I am sort of in love with her in this movie. Like I think she is possibly next, with the exception of Christopher Lee, although he's a villain, so it's not quite the same thing. Out of the heroic characters, she is easily the most watchable.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because she's just a talent agent. Like she's not like an expert on the occult and everything, but she's funny and she's charismatic and everything. And I find that when this movie is getting super stale, which it does often, at least you have a character there that tries to liven things up. Like her dialogue's not great, but they tried to have like kind of a character that thinks everything is a bit absurd, like she doesn't believe any of this, so like she's not taking it seriously. And I don't know, I also just love her relationship with the Widmark character. Like their camaraderie is cool to me.
Yeah, no, it is wonderful. She's got her husband who's hanging around. She's just friends with Richard Widmark. That they do have she's a wonderful friend. It's a great character. And by the way, you're right. She plays us. It strikes me as super strange how exotic Catholicism, which is not exactly an unknown sect, how exotic these movies treat it all as though she's just simply never heard of all of this craziness.
Well, she's never even heard of All Hallows Eve.
Right.
That was so absurd to me.
Tomorrow's All Hallows Eve, which we know is Halloween. And she's like, what the heck is that? Come on.
Also, the notion that there's something actually satanic about Halloween is hilarious.
That's why it's Satanic Panic. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I exactly, but it just
it's not the only film to go ahead and do that.
Oh, I know, but it that's and Julie is of course completely right. That is what makes this a Satanic Panic movie, because they're trading in on that. Although there's nothing remotely, like they don't go out of their way to make it look like it's during the fall. And I mean, admittedly, Halloween is not as big of a thing, certainly in the 70s in England, as it is here.
Well, and the place that they're at, you wouldn't know if it was fall anyway. They're in this completely beautiful cobblestoned marina, basically, and it's
trees, right.
Boy, it's gorgeous. I mean, it's such a very specific neighborhood that he's in. I mean, it's not just random anywhere London. It's this very specific place. Go ahead.
You bring up when I'm comparing this to The Omen, you're bringing this up. A lot of this movie feels like they're stuck inside of apartments or various like it's like they're trying to have the globe-trotting adventure feel of The Omen, but they don't actually have the budget to do any of that.
That's possible. That's really possible. By the way, this is I should have said this is St. Catherine's Dock in Wapping.
Oh my gosh, I have to say that retractable bridge was so cool. I loved that. I was like flipping out over the retractable.
I don't know how
bridge
it
and
works, but it's awesome. Yeah.
No, he's just like turning a wheel, and it's just like that's all. It's just sliding the thing on tracks basically. But yeah, it's super cool.
I just wanted to mention Honor Blackman, who once again, if you're listening to this, and it boggles my imagination that this is possible, but if you're listening to this and you haven't seen the movie, Honor Blackman is this statuesque, beautiful, blonde, very smart alecky actress who was well known as Pussy Galore in Goldfinger, but in Dr. Terrible's House of Horrible, which is a funny as heck anthology series that BBC put out. It was every episode parodied a different famous horror trope, and she was the star of the episode 1 of 6, called Lesbian Vampire Lovers of Lust, and it's an excellent piece of fine British television. I can't recommend it enough.
Or are they like
they're lesbians and they're vampires and they're lovers?
But they're
of
lovers
lust.
of lust, so they love lust is what they love.
Right.
That was on Shudder for a while. I don't know if it's still on there, but that you're correct in saying that is a really funny series.
I bought it on Vudu, so I've got it in theory forever until Vudu falls into a volcano. So there we go.
I like how we're breaking down the title as a grammar thing. It's like, all right, now wait a minute.
Well, I want to understand it, give it the respect that it deserves.
Right. You want
I mean,
to have the emphasis is fall in the
Because
right
I don't
place.
want
You have
to. I don't want to do
expectations.
the lesbian vampires wrong and assume that they love other vampires. What they really love is lust. So I want to, I want to give credit where credit's due.
You want to be
You know-
clear. I understand.
Yeah.
not to be confused, by the way, with Vampire Lesbians of Sodom, which is a 1984 satirical
They're
film.
not lovers of
I
Sodom.
always
they're
get
just
those
of Sodom.
confused. Always.
Right.
Yeah, me too.
I get so many films confused with Vampire Lesbians of Sodom, and so people, Julia will be like, we were supposed to be watching Oliver, and I was like, darn it, Vampire Lesbians of Sodom again. I can't
Again. And that tattoo experience went wrong too, but that's another story.
Okay,
Yep.
but yes. So that's pretty much our cast. It's Christopher Lee.
What was the tattoo supposed to say, Jason?
Vampire lesbians of the Constitution.
As we all know.
Lesbian vampire lovers of the Second Amendment.
Jesus
Boy,
Christ.
that actually sounds fantastic. I want that T-shirt because they would have guns. that
Oh my
that
God.
sounds great.
I like a good poster for sure.
Yes. Anyway, so yeah, we mentioned what kicks it. So Denim Elliott, who, as we know, well-known actor, very, very busy on TV at the time. Denim Elliott had played Dracula on the BBC.
He did. I did see that.
I haven't seen it. He was a very interesting Dracula because he had these big sunglasses, just like Vincent Price in The Tomb of Ligeia. And
right.
It's
I
a
always
very
wanted a pair of those sunglasses when I was a kid.
No, they look cool. I mean, yeah, with the leather straps on the side just to keep the sun from getting in. It's a neat touch. Anyway, yeah, he has fled from this satanic sect, and so he shows up and he says, Richard Widmark, I trust you, and presumably nobody in England knows who you are, so you can go do some skullduggery for me. Please go to the airport because my daughter is coming to visit me. We're going to do essentially a heist. We're gonna kidnap my daughter, and you can meet up with me later, I guess, to hand her off. But that's not actually his plan.
It's because I am in danger of a satanic cult. Not my daughter's in danger, but I am in danger from a satanic cult.
Right. For reasons that I don't quite understand, he doesn't tell Richard Widmark the whole story. Probably because he doesn't want to scare Richard Widmark away.
He knows he's not going to say, oh yeah, sure, I'll become a target of the satanic cult. Why not?
Right.
Yeah.
So he gets to the airport, and who do we meet but the very, very lovely Nastassja Kinski. I thought that was her accent. She's actually dubbed. So, whatever.
It said this. Go ahead.
That's the most hammerish thing about this movie. They're overdubbing somebody.
I guess
was
so.
going to say this is the first time that she's in an English speaking part, and I was thinking her English is really, really good, but if she's dubbed, that makes sense then.
Yeah. She looks, Richard Widmark has an 8x10 glossy with which to recognize Nastassja Kinski, and it really appears
From
to
her
be an over-the-shoulder modeling headshot that I guess was taken, somewhere at
those
the
are
convent.
skills. It's important to have
her convent or her whatever you call it, her nunnery.
Right. There's a runway in that convent.
He goes up and and it's fascinating because we get to see, this would be cool in a thriller, is how do you convince somebody to come with you when they don't know who you are? And he goes up and he's like, your dad told me to pick you up. And she's like, I'm not that stupid. Show me proof. And somehow he convinces her, and after that, she's like, okay, fine. I'll go with Richard Widmark.
Why else? I have a picture of you. And she gives her a letter. He gives her a letter.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, a letter.
Right.
We're going to ditch that other guy who was with me, and he won't know.
The bodyguard and your luggage. And your luggage.
Right.
And the luggage.
Right.
Crazy.
So they go to his apartment. I want to point out something that I thought was actually, out of all the just tacky things they do in this movie, one thing they do not do is ever have Richard Widmark show the slightest romantic interest in this child. None.
Thank goodness for that.
Zero.
Yeah.
I mean,
really
thank God. He regards her as a child. She may as well be 8 years old. He's like, yeah, come on back here, get something to eat, go to bed. And
she may as well be 8 years old, and he may as well not be a perv, thank goodness.
Right.
He's not both.
No, right, for sure. And and later when Christopher Lee is trying to tempt Richard Widmark to go away, let me do my satanic thing, he goes, you can have Nastassja Kinski sexually. He doesn't even register that as tempting at all. Of course he doesn't. He doesn't find her interest. First of all, Richard Widmark is like 65 years old. And
Yeah.
it's
And he's
just
not
not,
her.
maybe honor Blackman, but not 14-year-old Nastassja Kinski. It's
Yeah.
but on the tacky side, it's absurd to imagine that most, or am I just naive? But it feels absurd to imagine that most people even would be tempted by this,
Well, they
My
wouldn't
thought,
be putting it in the movie if they didn't think that there
Yeah.
was somebody, because it's exploitive of that, and that's the
It
reason why
absolutely
it's
is, I guess.
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
it is. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, that is a good point, because you wouldn't put her naked in there unless you thought that she was hot. That had to be the reason.
Well, and
And
she is hot. She's just, you have to remember that she's young. It's not just
Yeah.
because because the thing is, if you knew she was 19 and she looked exactly the same, you'd be like, yeah, she's hot. But because she's 14, you're like, ugh, gross. You know what I
and
mean?
instead, what you
Not
are is
okay.
embarrassed for her, and you want to put
Yeah.
her clothes back on her. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm, Nastassja Kinski. I feel horrible for her that this film is putting her through this. Although Nastassja Kinski, being her own person, probably was like,
No,
whatever.
she was she was not
Oh,
okay with it.
okay. Tell me if you know
No.
something. Tell me.
Well, I mean, it's just according to IMDb, she was very uncomfortable. But anyway, I mean, plus it doesn't matter because she's underage to consent anyway. So it's like it doesn't even
That's a good
matter
point.
if a 14-year-old's like, yeah, I'm totally okay with people seeing me sexually. That doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't have a problem with nudity. I'm not, I pro sexuality. I don't think that it, I think it should be destigmatized, except if it's somebody that's
pedophilia.
underage. Like I think that, like, would it have killed them to cast somebody that was like 21 in this
Right.
part?
Right.
It's literally, in this country, it's literally illegal what they did, like you said, Jason.
Yeah,
in your
it's
intro. It is literally illegal to have her be parading around naked in this country.
and
on video.
thankfully it's only like it's less than a minute of on the screen, but
Well,
it's still extraordinarily in bad taste. And
Yes.
Hammer, especially in the 70s, made some pretty exploitive movies, but like this is like a step beyond
Yeah.
that.
Because, like, what's the movie? If you think of the difference, you can kind of laugh and go along with the pervy, like, blood play in, oh God, I think Satanic Rites of Dracula, where they're just kind of pouring, syrup like blood all over this naked girl on a big arc, and it's intended to be. This is essentially silly. This is essentially it's just intended to be prurient, and that's why you came to the drive-in. So that's what you're here for. But this
actually, are we
makes you uncomfortable.
actually participating in? Now I'm thinking about it, in an illegal activity by watching this film, because it's.
I mean, it was available on Amazon.
That's my point. It's
so-
like, are we all, meaning us and Amazon, everybody, or should it not be available?
If it disappears next week, Julia,
it'll be my fault.
you know why.
Right.
That's okay.
I don't know, and it may have something to do with that there may be very strict definitions based on what the actors in the film are actually doing. She doesn't really do anything. She just takes off her robe and walks.
No, supposedly Christopher Lee has sex with her, but I mean, it's
No. Christopher Lee has sex with her mom, and she has
also
sex
with
with a
weird
weird mask guy.
Yeah, but
actually, that whole scene's confusing.
that again, and that's still doing something. Like you're saying, she's not doing anything. She's having. The point is, it's suggested that she's having sex with some kind of Christopher Lee proxy, is what I understood. Again, it was very confusing.
You understood that better than I did. I had
Well,
no
I
idea
mean,
what the hell was going on.
Since that is simulated sex and not real,
I don't know,
think
but I think
that's probably in the.
Yeah, but child pornography doesn't require that the child be in the act.
I want to like get off this topic as soon as I can, because
never watch a movie like this with two attorneys. It's usually or maybe you should watch it with two attorneys.
Yeah, right.
Present.
I'm assuming since it is
move
available on a mainstream
You would
Platform.
assume wrong.
streaming platform
There's plenty of
that
illegal stuff out there that's available.
I did not break any laws, but like I said, if
that's what I'm
this
going
movie
with as well.
disappears from Amazon, I'm just gonna say it's because of this castle
The
of
show will
horror.
never
Yeah.
air.
All right. That'd be
Amazon
okay.
listened to this podcast and took it.
That'd be okay.
They're like,
our advice.
For my
Yeah.
part, I did not know that I was going to see a naked 14-year-old.
All you had to do, by the way, was cut it. All they had to do was just
It doesn't
cut her.
add any. It doesn't add anything to the movie. Like you could even had the line that Christopher Lee says if you wanted,
right?
But that's I think my biggest. Well, I mean, other than her age, my biggest objection with the nudity, aside from her age, is that it serves no real story purpose at all. Like I don't know.
No,
but
I
as
agree.
you're right,
I mean,
we should probably not meander.
Yeah.
You know, we're at the edge of the world here. Be monsters.
So yeah. Anyway, he hides her out, and so the plot then becomes Richard Widmark now in essentially a supernatural thriller, where he investigates, going from point A to point B, looking for information about Nastassja Kinski and about Father Rayner to find out what's going on with these guys and why are they targeting my new friend Denim Elliott. And meanwhile, of course, Nastassja Kinski is finding ways to just hang out back at the apartment until Rayner manages to, by remote control, start controlling her and causing her to do evil things. We can get into his detective stuff, but I don't think we really need to. He does go to the church, and he does research on what the heretical sect was all about. But when Nastassja Kinski starts heading back to meet up with Father Rayner because he can control her by just like Boris Karloff in The Mummy, she gets super violent and she kills Honor Blackman, and it's shocking. I mean, her killing of Honor Blackman was. I mean, Drew, you said that you enjoyed Honor Blackman here.
A lot.
You know, I felt so bad. I really wished that Honor Blackman was going to survive, but good Christ! I mean, she gets stabbed like through the ear with one of those long, pokey metal combs.
Yeah, it's like a Friday the 13th murder.
It is.
It was glass, and it was because nobody bothered to clean up the broken.
No, it wasn't glass. It was her long, pokey comb. It was the metal comb.
I thought it was a metal, with.
I thought it was a shard of glass because
No.
the mirror was shattered all over the ground. So I assumed that.
Right. No, she didn't use that. She could have used the glass, but she didn't. And it was awful.
She used her No More Tangles comb.
Yes. and then she takes out into the beautiful, like almost Venice-like streets here at St. Catherine's and Dock. And then when Richard Widmark goes back and hooks up with his pal, who was Honor Blackman's husband, they go investigating, and very soon after, and then there's. Please forgive me.
I was a little disappointed with the way the story arc of her husband, because it really seemed like he was going to go on a roaring rampage of revenge, and I'm kind of sorry we didn't.
It seemed like that was going to happen.
Right. And it's almost like, that's a really good point. You do kind of feel like something's going to happen with him, but instead they're like, okay, we need MacGuffin, this thing they call a pact, which is a pendant, but whatever. They need the MacGuffin. They go get the MacGuffin. He doesn't handle it according to strict instructions, and so Christopher Lee is able to set the guy on fire from far away and burn him to a crisp instantly. At this point in the movie, I'm watching and going, "What? No disrespect, but I have no idea what the hell's going on." I mean, I
No, complete disrespect. It's all right. It's all right. You're like, okay, guys, the wheels have come off. You clearly the wheels have come off.
It's like, I don't know. We need to fill 8 minutes here. So I don't know. There's a MacGuffin. It's in the church.
Set them ablaze.
Don't touch it without doing whatever. And then the friend burns up, and then the movie wraps up fairly quickly because Father Rayner is doing his big ritual stuff. So now here's all the you hear the producers basically going, "Give me the Satanic Ritual stuff." By the way, they're in this big churchyard. I really don't know where this is. I don't know if it's a current church. I don't know what it is, but I'm just trying to imagine going to the local bishopric and saying, "Hey, I'd like to film a movie where Christopher Lee, who you will know as Dracula, is going to be doing like some satanic stuff with rubber bendy knives and puppet demons and a naked 14-year-old on this altar in the middle of your courtyard. Is that okay?" And they go, "How much money are we talking about?" And so that's
No.
that. Like that
I
seems
sure
to be
hope
what
that
is
wasn't how it went down. I hope
because
it was an
because this sure
unconsecrated, like,
seems to be a church. If it's not,
abandoned.
I don't know. We'll find out.
Oh my gosh, that'd be terrible.
I mean, it depends. I guess it depends on how much of a sense of humor they have, but it looks like this might be the
Churches don't.
Dashwood Mausoleum.
Not always known for their sense of humor. Typically, it's not like
Right.
Yeah,
they don't usually get a belly laugh from the
No.
Catholic Church.
Anyway,
Not about having satanic
Not about this.
rituals in their
Yeah,
church.
not so much.
so at the
Sure,
end of The
something else.
Devil Rides Out, the 1968 The Devil Rides Out, at the end they actually summoned the demon, and he was this big ablaze sort of golden character. Here, we talked a little bit about the Bloody Elmo demon
Bloody
puppet.
Elmo.
Yeah, who's climbing
basically,
around.
He kills Christopher Lee by hitting him in the head with a rock. Like, talk
Yes.
about anticlimactic.
Right. Richard Widmark says, Christopher Lee says, "You can't come in my magic circle." Richard Widmark says, "I see your magic circle and I raise you some exception to your
Astaroth.
rule." Yeah, Astaroth is going to bless this stone for reasons, and so I'm going to whack you in the head with the rock.
It's a
I can't believe. Oh, I'm sorry. I
like to think they had another idea in mind, and they were like,
they absolutely
and
had
they made it up
They
on
did.
the.
No, they did. It actually says in the thing that they did in the IMDb. It says, let me go back and see what it was. It says that it was supposed to be the original script. The character Father Reynard recovers from the rock thrown by John Verney and attempts to pursue Verney and Catherine. He is then struck by a flash of lightning as he crosses the circle. Although this ending was filmed, none of the footage survives and is illustrated on DVD by monochrome stills. Why? Why didn't they use that? That's so much better. I don't get it.
I mean, the funny thing is that's also the end of Scars of Dracula.
Maybe that's why they didn't use it.
I can't begin to
Or
imagine.
they cut it for time, or who knows? I mean, who knows what it was?
Or there was a lot of post-production on that lightning strike they had to do that they just didn't have the money to do.
Now you bring up a really good point. You good point here, and that is, it's funny. We brought up the whole bit where you start with Christopher Lee, and he says, "It is not heresy, and I will not recant," and all that. And when you sit down to this, remember, I saw this first when I was a kid, and I'm pretty sure I saw it. I saw it on television, probably, and they must have cut all the bits out that whatever. I mean, it was on television.
They have to,
So
right?
I remember a fairly mild version of this, and I was like, this was not really a problem, but it was, and frankly, I kind of thought that's what I was going to sort of see this time, and it was like, oh, this is different and a problem. But what's interesting is the promise of this picture at the beginning, where you go, okay, this is sort of interesting. I like Christopher Lee. I like he's setting some stuff up. Oh, there's a lot of Catholicism at work here, and you're kind of going along, and then all these things happen. And now we're at the point where we're talking about the climax. We're hitting the guy in the head with a rock, and you're basically kind of going, "This is my point." Like it invites you in sort of with this one set of ideas, and it sort of has a start. And then by the time we get to this point, it's like, "Hey, we killed the other friend. We should really wrap this up. Get the Elmo ready, because I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
We only have so much footage left that we can actually shoot, and we only have the church for one more day. So let's get moving." And I'm making light of it, but I mean, it feels like it moves in a way where the promise of the premise, which is always kind of like the idea of this, right? Is it's kind of, what's this thing going to be about? And you get the idea. You say it's going to be something heavy, and it's going to be Christopher Lee, and it's going to be kind of like, oh, very interesting. And by the end of it, they're saying, the producers are saying, as you said, Jason, you can hear them, okay, let's give the audience what they came in for, which is all
Yeah.
this stuff, however we're going to do it. But the two don't exactly match up in the way that you expect.
Right.
And that's kind of the odd part of it. It's not like when you go to see a movie like, I don't know, Devil's Reign, the old one back from the 70s, what's going to happen. You don't, there are no expectations that, I mean, it delivers on all of those, on everything. And it's, deliciously terrible,
I love The Devil's Reign, which is not to say that I think it's a good film, but I think boy, does it have the strength of its convictions. It is exactly the movie that you expect.
And that's my point with this, right? Where you go, you know what that is. And here I think you guys can disagree with me. I feel like we're being promised a bill of goods that, it touches on periodically. This will be like the other pictures that you like. We have Christopher Lee. Richard Widmark has been in the Alamo, for crying out loud. He's a good actor. We'll get him. And you're touching on some of the things, but not fully. And then it all begins to sort of fall apart. Forget all the other horribleness of Kinski and whatever, but it really is the fact that it doesn't deliver in the way that you sort of expect. And it really is. It shortchanges you, I think, because of it, and you feel kind of like, well, it's disappointing. Because the film kind of meandered around this, and you feel like this was inevitable. It was going to be this the whole time. Apparently, I just didn't expect that from the beginning. I may be the only one who kind of feels this way about it, but because of it, it feels like the pact that the film makes with you, the picture makes with you, is broken. As we're talking about pacts, is sort of broken, sort of along the way, and you realize, oh, this is not the film that I thought it was going to be.
The only reason why I think it's not is just because it's tonally so inconsistent. I feel like if the movie were a little more over the top in all of the sort of
sure, one way or another, I agree.
Classy hanging out, sipping champagne scenes, those scenes are deadly dull in the kind of way that movies are dull when they want to be taken seriously.
Guys, we've sat through Eurotrash, and we've seen a bunch of stuff. Go on, Drew.
Yep.
I think if they had stuck to what, and again, this is much later, it has a lot of different people involved, but like The Devil's Rides Out is this sort of same demonology genre, but it's far more hammery because it's a period piece.
But it's not. Devil Rides Out was also contemporary.
No, it's not. Devil's Rides Out is not. It takes place in the 20s, man.
Oh, did it? I completely forgot that. Completely forgot that. I'm so sorry.
Takes place in the 1920s, and so it's got a different feel to it than this. It's got this sense of
I forgot
daring do. It's got a that vibe to it, whereas this, I don't know, like I think that they were trying too hard to make something, and it's got that neither, because it's not they can't afford to be as in your face with the special effects as The Exorcist is. They can't afford to be this sort of globe-trotting adventure flick that The Omen is. So it just ends up feeling very small. Yeah. And I don't know, like when you compare this to The Devil's Rides Out, and I don't want to harp on that movie too much, but I mean it's Satanism, it's Dennis Wheatley, it's Hammer. The comparison is there to be made. Like that movie just like clips along, and it's look, there's some datedness, I guess, to the special effects, but it's damn good movie. Like it's great. It just works. And this movie just, again, because I think they were chasing that vibe. They were like, okay, what's popular, instead of doing what they do well. I think if they had, I just think if they had stuck to their true north, I think that they would have ended up with a much better movie. And it still could have been this, to a degree. It still could have been satanic and, had all the creepy satanic stuff. I just think that if it had more of a Hammer feel about it, I think that it would have had a little bit more charm.
Can I twist that around into a question for everybody? Because you're probably right, but now I'm beginning to lose the plot. Like, what is Hammer, and how was Hammer losing its ability to be itself? I'm not quoting you. I'm agreeing completely that that's what's going on. Hammer is stopping being Hammer, but what is Hammer? Like, what is it that was to be lost? I mean, to me, the stuff, obviously, in the perfect world of forms, Hammer, it's period, it's gothic, and there are a lot of themes that pop up again, you know, such as the sort of the devious power of nobility against really stalwart middle class people who are able to like resist and you know, and through intelligence, you know, beat them. Those are themes that pop up all the time. And you know, if you think of that stuff, all that stuff that made horror, Dracula and so forth good, none of that's here, right? There's I mean, there was also always cynicism in Hammer, for sure. And actually, I don't dislike the so-called modern Hammers, like God, what's the one where it's with Dracula AD 1972? But it's certainly
Mm-hmm.
not as good, you know. It's certainly not as strong as those originals, you know, Dracula.
Let me ask another question, and that is, you know, in the pantheon of Hammer pictures, which I think between us we've probably seen a good number of them at different times, and yeah, they really did embrace a particular style and a sensibility.
For sure.
And you could tell when you saw one. This is a Hammer picture,
right?
But how many at this time in particular? Inflation was going crazy. It was the 70s. A lot of things were happening. How many co-production deals did they do? You know, is this one of those things where? And I don't know. I didn't dig into the full background of this. I do know that this is a co-production deal.
Yeah.
And you know, how much power did the other? I mean, what did they bring to the table? And the other
I got something on that.
Involved. And I think that's an important thing. And how many did Hammer do prior to this? Or was this one of those things that this really was one of the times that they did do this, and there was such an influence? They really were being influenced by the money, and I mean the people, not.
Well, here's what I read.
The money.
To answer your question, so according to, there's a lot of books, but I keep turning always to Bruce Wright's Nightwalkers because I love it and because I published it. But you know, he has a whole thing about how EMI, their distributor, didn't want to fund a smaller picture. They said, we'll give you more money to make a bigger picture, but we want a contemporary horror film like The Exorcist and like The Omen. So that was it. They were like go, you know, so it needs to be you know, modern clothes and neat apartment buildings and like classy people drinking champagne and Satan.
Right,
so
and then it was like we want our Omen. Like,
yeah, we want
our
the
Omen.
Totally. Yeah.
Interesting.
Absolutely. So
you know, I may be completely wrong though. Well, I don't know. It depends. I guess it depends on what you think of as value, because I think that Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter, right?
Yeah.
That movie plays with the Hammer formula a little bit, but it's still recognizably a Hammer movie. And admittedly, at the time, that movie was not a big hit for them, which is probably why we got this movie.
Yeah.
And so I mean, from a financial standpoint, it's probably, you know, I could understand why they would want to experiment more. But at the same time, if you look at the longevity of a movie, Captain Kronos is a well-regarded cult classic now. And this movie is thought of to be as kind of a stinker. You know, like people don't really talk about this movie. So is it in any, I think we've actually been relatively kind to it compared to some of the stuff I've read about it online.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's totally true. It I mean, clearly, you know, Hammer's trying all kinds of stuff. There's the period that called the kitchen sink period, which is like when you get really nutso stuff like Vampire Circus and things like that. This is past that. This is really the last days, the last days of original Hammer. And they'll disappear, and then they'll come back in that period in the 2000s with things like, you know, Let Me In, which is a big deal movie. I mean, that was a really good movie, but there's a long dead period after this. So yeah, you're looking kind of at the end of Hammer. It's wild.
Well, maybe this movie's best viewed as Death Throes then.
Right. You know, you said Kronos. So Kronos comes out in 1974. Legend of Seven Golden Vampires comes out in 1974. Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell comes out in 1974. And then this movie in 1976. And then that's pretty much it. It's wild. That yeah. These are the death throes. It's really it. Wow. You know, and God love Nastassja Kinski. She became a major star. I mean, she, you know, so, you know, because cat people really just, oof, just put her over the moon, you know. So yeah. I guess we should go ahead and get our final thoughts and then endorsements. Drew, thank you for discussing To the Devil a Daughter, or Child of Satan. What are your final thoughts?
Oh, I had a good time with this discussion. Probably a better time than I had actually watching the movie. I still think that this is the best example out of this round of Satanic Panic movies. I think this is the best example, though, of like if somebody were to say, "What is a Satanic Panic genre film?" I would point to this one first. That being said, no, it's not great. It does have some cool stuff in it. And it's always great to see Christopher Lee. And again, I sort of in love with Honor Blackman in this movie, but you know, not great. Just, you know, at most okay, but mostly not great.
Thank you very, very much. Julia, I mean, thank you for watching this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, same. It's just, there's not there's not enough. There's a lot of good stuff, but there's not enough good stuff to overshadow or balance out or whatever the stuff that's disturbing, confusing, and just disgusting. Like there's some disgusting things to me that are in addition to what we already talked about. Just I hated the Satan Elmo. I thought it was really disgusting. I think
Yeah.
that the whole satanic birth thing is really, I mean, it's horrific, so it's horror, but it's just so gross. There's just a lot of stuff that I was like, but I get it, I get why it's there and whatever. But this is definitely not my jam. However, like I say, that I really enjoyed the Christopher Lee performance. I think he's so creepy. I love it during the satanic birth when you have the two adoptive parents or whatever they are, the people that are in attendance, and they're just like, oh, they just look so horrified. And then you see Christopher Lee, and he just has the biggest smile, and his eyes are huge, and he's like, yes, this is great.
Yes.
He's just so.
He really sells it.
It's just really,
Christopher Lee is
he
doing
really does
like
sell it.
really yeoman's work here. Yes.
Yeah. So I just, if you could just pull his performance out, I think that would be brilliant. And Honor Blackman as well, and Nastassja Kinski, aside from the nudity. I mean, she's fantastic. And poor thing for it's not that I'm blaming her for that, but anyway, so and even I mean, what's the name of the writer? The actor,
Dennis Wheatley.
Dennis Wheatley. No, the writer, the character writer, the character of the writer.
Oh yeah, Richard Widmark. Yeah.
Yes, him. He's great too. So I do think the performances are brilliant. I think the locations are beautiful, the sets and everything. And it's just for those things that really, I mean, I feel like they didn't have to make it so confusing, and they definitely could have done the ending a little differently. So there's definitely some things that I feel like could have made the film a lot better if they decided to put the time, effort, and money into it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Adam, what a great film for you to join us for. I think this has been a lot of fun. What are your final thoughts on To the Devil a Daughter?
Well, I don't think anything has really changed for me, from the beginning of this discussion. I will say that, I do agree that, I mean, seeing Christopher Lee, if nothing else, then what we're doing is we're looking into basically a time capsule of when Christopher Lee was sort of, being his Christopher Lee-est.
Yeah.
And that's in, if you could, as Julia said, take those bits out and sort of look at those on YouTube or something, you'd be like, that was actually really good. In that abstract bit of just him being like that, and I think this picture is indicative of a time and of a place and of a company that had a long history, and I think, as Drew pointed out, was sort of seeing the death throes of it, the tail end of it. So I think it's the fact that it exists and the fact that we're able to sit down and watch it. It speaks to that time. It's certainly, I mean, we're looking at it through eyes of not just having seen decades of pictures since then, but we have different sensibilities, but a love for the genre, and even when we can sit here and we can say that The Exorcist and The Omen and other pictures of that type are classy, and Rosemary's Baby, and they are. When you can say that, and you go, well, these are people who kind of really like the genre. So I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff that really could have been done with this original story, which I've not read, but I could sort of squint my eyes and look at it and say, okay, look, I think this
Yeah.
could have been done with it. That would have made it, probably a bit more of something that would have been in keeping, or maybe even surpassed, some of these ideas in the other films. So I think again, it suffers from a bunch of different things that we've talked a lot about. Apart from the Christopher Lee part, I can't tell you that I enjoyed seeing it again. It's not, it's kind of like, it just was like, okay, there are things in it that are all right, but I think there are anything of this type. There are probably any number of other better films, because even if they're classy, or if they're just just rip-roaring hokey, at least they own up to kind of what they are. They embrace whatever the thing is, and you can delight in that. This is a hard picture to delight in.
Yeah,
you really can't. You really can't just go, oh God, I can't wait to you can't. It's funny when you talk about films that celebrate certain aspects of the genre. It just feels like exploitation. It just feels like it's not honest. It feels like it's not earnest, and that's a big problem. So I wish I could tell you that I felt any differently about it, but it ain't good. It's one of those things. It's just, you can just watch Christopher Lee on YouTube, if this shows up somewhere, and then just and stay away. Really, it's not great.
Excellent. I have nothing to add to any of that. I just want to go back to say how bizarre it is that we've watched Hammer's the last film of classic Hammer, To the Devil a Daughter, and we somehow have not watched all of the Christopher Lee Dracula films save the first one. It just blows my mind. I cannot begin to tell you how in 343 episodes we've overlooked that. it makes
I
no
can.
Yeah,
I can, absolutely. We constantly are getting sidetracked. We're like, if this is a video game, we get
Yes.
lost on the side quests a lot. Like
Ah.
we're doing random fetishy, stuff that like one of us really wants to do,
Oh, yeah.
let's do Planet of the Dinosaurs. Like
Yes.
that was my personal, thing that I brought to the table. That was a move.
Sure, or
time.
Satan's School for Girls. Yeah. No,
I'm sure Tony could bring up his own thing. Like we do a lot of side quests. We don't always, but
Well,
we've covered a fair amount of classics on here too. So I think
we did the whole Frankenstein series, the whole Peter Cushing Frankenstein. It's just we haven't done the Christopher Lee Draculas, and that's obviously that's something that we need to schedule, because we need to do that. I think I've had this fear that it'll all be over when we. What else is there to do once you?
They're always making. The thing is about horror movies, Jason, is they're always making more of them.
That's true. That's very true. So awesome. Okay, let's get our endorsements. Just whatever you want to recommend or call out or what have you. Drew, do you have anything for us?
Well, first off, I need to point out that there is a sale on Halloween Man collections on Comixology. All of them are half off. So if you want to get into reading my comics, now's a pretty good time. It's part of the small press superhero sale. And again, everything's very marked down. So, some of them are only $2 and you can get hundreds of pages of comics. That's a pretty good deal. So I would be remiss if I did not point that out. Speaking of comic books, this week I purchased and enjoyed the first volume of Crossover by my old Best of Austin sparring partner, Donnie Cates, and artist Geoff Shaw. I think I'm saying that right. I really enjoyed it. It's a very postmodern comic, although oddly, it's very similar to a superhero game that I ran when I was in my early 20s. There's no way that Donnie and I were aware of the, like, it's just like a parallel evolution thing. But the plot of it is that Denver, Colorado, sorry, Jason and Julia, there is an event in Denver, Colorado, that suddenly every single comic book character is now alive in Denver, Colorado. And of course, this is an apocalyptic event because you have superheroes battling supervillains. You have, and when I say just comic book characters, it's not even just characters that originated in comics. You have characters like Godzilla, for example, roaming around Denver, Colorado. So this is an apocalyptic event that is happening, and it drastically alters society, and it's a mystery as to why it happens. And the world that it takes place in is really interesting and intricate. And thankfully, Donnie Cates was able to get a lot of people to let him borrow their comic book characters, so you have a lot of recognizable comic book characters showing up in it. Because I don't think it would work quite as well if he was constantly having to make up comic book characters. I think the fact that he actually has characters that are recognizable really sells the concept. But it's an offbeat comic. It's available on Image. There's a trade paperback that's just out of the first 6 issues, and it won an Eisner Award, or it's up for an Eisner Award. So you should read it, because that's pretty good. So that's where I'm at today.
Thank you very much. That's fantastic. Julia, do you have anything to endorse for us?
No, I've forgotten. I know I have said, watch Loki, and now that Loki is wrapped up, I want to say again, watch Loki, because Loki was fantastic. I enjoyed it a lot, the first season. But no, I can't really think of anything that we didn't talk about, because we didn't go see a movie this week, did we? I don't think we did.
We did not. No, but we watched several movies at home.
I thought you two went and saw Black Widow.
Oh, we did see Black Widow, but I think didn't we talk about
that's
that
last week, though.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. Yeah.
We watched the 1943 Phantom of the Opera. We watched this, and that was about it. So
I think you can talk about Phantom of the Opera if you want to, but I think I'm good.
I just want to point out, by the way, the filming location. I was looking it up where this closing is. It is at the so-called Dashwood Mausoleum, which is part of the National Trust, and is on Churchill in West Wycombe, Buckinghamshire. So, and is now the site of St. Lawrence's Church and the mausoleum. So somebody gave them permission to do this crazy stuff. That's all I'm saying. And I really would love to hear how that happened, like how that conversation went and how much money was exchanged, because I'm just trying to imagine it. Anyway, all right, Adam, what do you have for us?
I'm probably behind on the times a bit just because of all things going on, but with everything to watch, I actually sat down finally to watch. There are these 2 guys who were in the show Outlander, who did a travel show called Men in Kilts, which they travel all around Scotland. And I gotta say, it's on Amazon. Honestly, really enjoyed it, so much so that I actually, we actually started watching Outlander, which I had not seen before. Having been through all the Game of Thrones stuff, obviously, but coming to Outlander. So Outlander is, I think, not everybody's cup of tea. I think I like it, but I did really enjoy Men in Kilts. Not at all what this show is about, but it is one of those things that I found charming. And Scotland is one of the places that I've not actually been, so I found it absolutely captivating, super interesting. Now, if you want to shoot a film there, I think we should go do that. I think that would be amazing.
Very good. For my part, the only thing that I would add is I read The Final Girl Support Group, which is a brand new book from Grady Hendrix, and it is so good. I just shot through it this weekend and really loved it. And I also want to recommend Nightwalkers once again from Bruce Wright, because he had a whole section I could refer to on this movie, and that was wonderful. So yeah, if you haven't checked out Nightwalkers, please do. So Adam, thank you for joining us this time. Drew and Julia, thank you for joining us once again. It's been a delight to get to talk to all of you, and I hope to talk to all of you soon. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic week. Come and leave questions at the Facebook page and let us know your thoughts, or if we're way off, or if you just think that we were completely wrong in the way we discussed something, or I'm totally interested in those, because sometimes we miss something major, and I'm always interested in that. All right,
Thanks,
be
everybody.
safe.
Thanks,
Have
Adam.
a wonderful week. Bye, guys.
Good
Night.
night. Bye bye.